In a quiet, sleepy village somewhere in Ogun State, Nigeria, lived a woman known by everyone as Mama Rose. Her real name was Grace, but let's be honest, no one in that village remembered that anymore. People only saw her as that frail old woman whose entire life revolved around her son, David. Grace wasn't always like this. There was a time she laughed freely, wore bright wrappers, and even sang while pounding yam in the evening breeze. But all that ended the day death snatched her husband. Just like that, one ordinary Tuesday afternoon. She still remembered how little David, barely 5 years old, clung to her wrapper, asking, "Mummy, when will Daddy wake up?" Grace had no answer. She just hugged him tightly, tears rolling down her cheeks. "He's gone, my son," she whispered. "But don't worry, God is still with us. You'll study hard, make it big, and one day, make me proud." That night, while the neighbours were still murmuring pity, she folded her husband's old clothes into a small box, locked it away, and said to herself, "From now on, I'll live for this boy." And she did. Life, however, didn't care about her determination. It came hard and heavy. Grace began doing everything and anything to keep food on the table, washing people's dirty clothes, sweeping shops, hawking roasted corn, even fetching water for construction workers. She became the definition of strong woman, not the fancy kind people post about on social media, but the kind whose slippers cut halfway to the market, and she still keeps walking because her son's school fees are due next week. Sometimes, when there was no food, she would pretend she wasn't hungry. "Eat, my dear," she'd say, pushing the last piece of yam towards David. "I already ate in the afternoon." Meanwhile, her stomach would be crying louder than a church choir. Every evening after her long day, she would sit on a small wooden stool outside the house, holding a dim kerosene lamp. She'd spread David's books on the table, wipe his school shoes with an old cloth, and mutter, "One day, son, my son will become someone great. People will hear his name." David at that time was her world, her hope, her joy, her entire reason to keep breathing. He was a bright child too. Teachers loved him. The kind that always raised his hand in class like he had all the answers in the universe. When he got home from school, he'd wave his notebook proudly. "Mama, guess what? My teacher showed my book to everyone today." Grace would smile, her tired eyes lighting up. "My son, I told you, you will make me proud one day." She said it so often that it became her evening prayer. After dinner, when David had fallen asleep, Grace would sit by the window, counting her savings, a few wrinkled Naira notes folded neatly inside a tin box. She'd sigh and whisper, "Maybe next week I can pay the first term school fee." It was small and humble, cracked mud walls, a zinc roof that sang every time it rained, and a small clay stove in the corner that never really cooled down. But to Grace, it was paradise because her son lived there. Every little thing she did was for him. When the sun rose, she was already out with her tray of puff puff, balancing it on her head while humming an old tune her late husband used to sing. By the time she returned home, her legs felt like borrowed wood, but seeing David reading under the weak lamp made all the pain disappear. Sometimes neighbours would tease her. "Mama Rose, you go kill yourself because of this boyo. Take him easy." She'd laugh softly. "If I die raising him, at least I die for something meaningful." That was Grace, all heart, all sacrifice, and not even an ounce of regret. As the years rolled by, David began to change. Not overnight. No, it started small. Just little things that Mama Rose didn't pay attention to at first. It began the day he returned from school and said, "Mummy, see Tolu's shoes. They shine like mirror. When he walks, the shoe talks." Mama Rose laughed. "En? So you want your own shoes to start talking to?" "Mummy, I'm serious," he whined. "Even his wristwatch is fine. All the city boys have fancy ones. I can't be the only bush boy in school." From that day, something new began to grow inside him. A hunger for more. The same hunger that ruins men before they even find their footing. When he wasn't reading, he was staring at other people's shiny things. Shoes that sparkled, shirts that looked imported, phones that made loud music. He started walking like a Lagos boy, but with a village wallet. One evening, while Mama Rose was boiling beans on her small coal stove, David sat quietly beside her. His eyes were glowing with new ambition. "Mama," he started carefully, "I've been thinking." Thinking about what again?" she asked, stirring the pot. I don't want to work for anybody. I'll open a shop. I'll sell clothes. That's where the money is. People love fine things. Mama Rose paused mid-stir and turned to him. You'll open a shop? With which money, my son? Hope you're not planning to rob my neighbour's chicken again. He frowned. Mummy, I'm serious. If others can make it, why not me? I'll start small. She sighed. Ah, this boy and his dreams. She knew that tone. It was the same one her husband used when he promised to build her a bigger house before death snatched him too soon. That night after dinner, she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking of how to help him. She had nothing left except a few old brass bangles, her wrapper, and a small tin box where she'd been saving money for her old age sickness. By morning, she had made up her mind. She sold her earrings, the ones she had worn on her wedding day. She borrowed a little from her friend Mama Nkechi, who first laughed and said, You want borrow money to open shop for Pekin? Make he no forget you owe. Mama Rose just smiled. He's my son. He can never forget me. Ah, if only she knew. With the money gathered, coins, crumpled notes, and borrowed dreams, she placed everything into David's hands the next morning. My son, she said softly, this is all I have. Use it well. God will bless your hustle. David grinned from ear to ear, hugged her tight and said, Mummy, you won't regret this. I'll make you proud. And that was how David's fashion world was born, a tiny shop in the corner of the street market, squeezed between a wig seller and a woman roasting corn. The first day was magic. Mama Rose followed him there, dressed in her best wrapper and a scarf that had seen better days. When she saw the shop sign, her eyes filled with tears. See my son-o, she said proudly, from my womb to the world. Inside the shop, clothes of all colours hung from the wall, lace, ankara, even fake designer shirts. It was small, but to Mama Rose it was a palace. She whispered a short prayer, Lord, let this boy succeed. Don't let all my hustle waste. And truly, things began well. Customers started trooping in. Women would haggle and say, this your cloth fine-o, how much last? And David would laugh and say, Auntie, I know dey cheat people like that woman beside me. No original I dey sell. In the evenings, he would return home with tired eyes but a happy heart. He would call, Mama, see what we made today, he'd say, pouring out crumpled notes on the table. Mama Rose never counted the money. She was more interested in his smile. She'd just take a little to buy food, push the rest back to him, and say, Use this to buy more goods, my son. The shop grew fast. Within months, David became known in the market as Young Boss. He bought himself a new phone, the kind that flashed when it rang. Then came the wristwatch, the shiny belt, the pointy shoes, and finally that ridiculous designer shirt that screamed, Big Man, even though it was fake. Soon, the boy who once ate Gary with groundnuts under Mama Rose's mango tree started forming too big to even say hi to their neighbours. Mama, I was with customers, he'd say, throwing his bag on the table. That's been his excuse any time Mama Rose demands to see him. She'd smile softly. No problem, my son. Your food is warm. Eat first before you sleep. She would sit quietly on her wooden chair, fanning the soup to keep it warm while waiting for him. But sometimes he'd fall asleep without touching it. As his business grew, so did his pride. The elders in the market started greeting him with respect. David the businessman! You go soon open branch for Lecchio! He'd laugh, pretending to be humble. No small thing, sir, we thank God! But Mama Rose began to notice something. He now said, my shop, not our shop. He now said, my money, not the money. Still, she didn't complain. She thought it was just youth talking. Every night she'd still pray, God, protect my son, bless him so big. Then one harmless Sunday evening, a new chapter was opened. David came home from the shop wearing a grin that stretched from one ear to the other. His eyes had that same mischievous sparkle he used to have as a child, right before he'd beg for something big. Mama, he said, dropping his bag. Guess what? Mama Rose looked up from the firewood stove where she was frying plantain. If it's about another phone, please, I don't want to hear it. That your small shop is not even up to one room, but you've already bought 3 phones this year. He laughed, waving his hand. No, Mama, this one is serious. I met someone. Met who? She asked suspiciously. A girl, Mama. Her name is Vanessa. She is from Lagos. Very respectable people. Mama Rose blinked twice, confused. Vanessa? Lagos? So it has reached that level? You, that still leaves dirty socks under the bed, you want to marry? David chuckled and scratched his head shyly. "Mama, don't start. The girl is quiet, decent, and educated. You'll like her." Mama Rose sighed, pretending to be annoyed, but deep down, her heart melted a little. Her boy was becoming a man. Soon the news of David's marriage spread through the entire village, faster than fire through dry grass. Every relative suddenly remembered their relationship with Mama Rose. Cousins, aunties, nieces, all of them came rushing to her compound, shouting, "Mama Rose! Congratulations, oh! Your Pekin Don finally bring bride!" That week, her small compound turned into a construction site of happiness. The air was filled with laughter, music, and the smell of fried meat. Women gathered under mango trees cutting vegetables. Children chased chickens that had no idea they'd soon be on the menu. And Mama Rose? She was glowing like a new bride herself. She even sold her last piece of gold, a tiny nose ring her late husband gave her, just to contribute to the wedding expenses. When her friend Maman and Ketchi tried to stop her, she smiled and said, "A mother's sacrifice never ends. When your child finds love, even your pain begins to dance." The wedding came and went like a dream. Vanessa looked stunning, polite, calm, and soft-spoken, the kind of girl you could easily mistake for a saint. When she stepped into Mama Rose's compound for the first time, she knelt down and greeted, "Good afternoon, Mama." Mama Rose's eyes watered immediately. She hugged her tightly and said, "My daughter, this is your home now. Take care of David and take care of yourself." For the first few weeks, everything was peaceful. Vanessa would wake early to make tea, while Mama Rose kneaded dough for Puff Puff. They'd sit in the yard talking about markets, house chores, and which day to wash clothes. Sometimes they'd laugh so loudly that even the goats behind the fence paused to listen. Mama Rose thought to herself, "Finally, my son chose well." But peace never lasts forever, especially not when money and pride start whispering in a man's ears. As David's business grew, his style changed again, this time faster than the last. He started hanging out with his big men friends. They wore expensive clothes even when it was 34 degrees, and they laughed like people who had just stolen something valuable. One evening, while Mama Rose was peeling yam, David announced, "Mama, we're moving." She blinked. "Moving where?" "To the city, Mama. This our old house doesn't fit my level anymore. I've got clients in town. I can't be calling them to come and meet me inside bush." Mama Rose's hand froze mid-peel. "This same house where you crawled as a baby, where your father's sweat built every wall, where I prayed for your success?" David smiled, trying to sound gentle. "Mama, times have changed. You should come with us. Lagos is beautiful." She stared at him for a long moment. The fire in her heart dimmed. "If it makes you happy, my son, I'll follow you. But remember, the air in this village knows our story. The dust here knows your first steps. Don't forget where your greatness began." He nodded distractedly, already scrolling through his phone. A month later, they moved into a 2-story duplex in Lagos. It had everything: shiny tiles that reflected light like glass, a big plasma TV, and curtains so fancy they looked like they came from another planet. But to Mama Rose, the house felt strange, cold, empty. She missed her bamboo fence, the smell of firewood, the sound of chickens fighting in the morning. Here even the air smelled expensive and lonely. At first, Vanessa was all smiles. "Mama, do you want tea? Mama, should I rub your legs? Mama, don't worry, I'll handle dinner." Mama Rose thought, Thank God, oh, my daughter-in-law is an angel. But slowly, things started shifting. The kitchen keys that once jangled on Mama Rose's wrapper suddenly found a new owner, Vanessa. When visitors came, she would say, "Mama, please just rest. I'll attend to them." When decisions were made, she'd say, "Mama, David and I already talked about it." Mama Rose didn't complain. She thought maybe this was what peace looked like in the city. But inside, she began to feel like a guest in her own son's life. Then David changed completely. He stopped sitting with her at night. The man who once told her everything now came home late, smelling of perfume and stress. When she tried to talk, he would say, "Mama, please, I'm tired. Business is not easy." She'd nod quietly, reheat his food for the 3rd time that night, and whisper, "At least eat something before you sleep." Sometimes the food went cold untouched. At night, while everyone slept, Mama Rose would sit by her window, staring into the quiet streets, her heart heavy. "God," she prayed softly, "keep my son humble. Don't let money blind his soul." But deep down she knew something was wrong. The warmth in the house had gone, even the laughter sounded rehearsed. The air was too clean, too quiet, like a place where love had been replaced by pride. That night, as she lay on her bed, clutching her late husband's photo, she whispered, "This city has stolen my son." And indeed it had. Slowly, beautifully, completely. The years rolled by like Harmattan dust, and one morning a piece of news dropped into the house like a bright ray of sunshine. Vanessa was pregnant. When Mama Rose heard it, she clapped her hands, danced barefoot in the yard and shouted, "Chai! Chai! God don butter my bread-o! My Pekin don finally give me reason to buy baby powder again." From that day, the whole house smelled of baby oil and excitement. She would sit on the veranda, one hand on her chest, smiling to herself. "At last I go hear baby cry again in this house." Months later, on a cool Saturday morning, a baby boy arrived. Round cheeks, loud voice, and eyes that looked just like his father's. They named him Junior. From that day, Mama Rose's heart came alive again. She spent every waking moment with that child. She sang lullabies from her youth, told Junior old folk stories, and even danced whenever he smiled. Every time she prayed, she kissed his forehead and whispered, "God, as long as this child they breathe, my joy go full." Years passed and another blessing came, a beautiful baby girl. They named her Mira. The sound of her laughter mixed with Junior's mischief made the house come alive like Christmas morning. Mama Rose thought, finally, my old age no go be lonely. My children and grandchildren go fill this house with laughter till I die. But life as usual had its own sense of humour. David's business began to grow fast. Too fast. His name was now being mentioned in meetings and magazines. His wardrobe changed from simple native wears to expensive dresses that made him look like Lagos money itself. His friends, once street boys from the neighbourhood, were now men with foreign accents and fake laughs. The same David who used to sit beside Mama Rose, sharing roasted corn and laughing over old stories, now barely had time to call her Mama. One day, David organised a big dinner for some top business partners, politicians, bankers, men who spoke only in numbers. Mama Rose, full of joy, decided to make her famous jollof rice and pepper soup herself. From morning till night, she cooked and arranged the table like it was a royal feast. By evening, the house smelled like heaven's kitchen. When David walked in with his guests, she came out, wiping sweat from her face, smiling proudly. But David's smile faded when he saw her. "Mama, please," he whispered sharply. "Don't come to the dining room. These are not our kind of people." Mama Rose froze, the ladle in her hand trembling. "Anne, our kind of people." He forced a smile and added quietly, "Just stay in the kitchen, I beg. I don't want them to misunderstand." Her heart broke into pieces so small even a broom couldn't gather them. She stood quietly as laughter echoed from the dining table. The food she cooked with love was being praised, but no one mentioned her name. When the guests left, she gathered courage and walked to him. "David, my son, did I do something wrong?" David sighed, without even looking at her. "Mama, you didn't do anything. It's just things are different now. I think it's time we start living separately. I want my family to have their own space." Those words hit her chest like a heavy pestle. She stared at him, searching his eyes for the boy she raised, the same boy who once held her hand crossing the street. "David," she said softly, "you want to separate your mother from you because of space? Abinah, because of shame?" But he didn't answer. The next morning, a taxi waited outside. A few of her wrappers, her old Bible, and some kitchen plates were packed in a small box. That was all Mama Rose took. As she stepped out, little Junior ran up, hugging her tightly. "Grandma, where are you going?" "Don't go." She forced a smile, even though her throat burned with pain. "My baby, Grandma just dey go small place to rest. I go come back, okay?" Vanessa stood by the gate, tears in her eyes but lips sealed. "Mama, please forgive me," she whispered. I tried to stop him. Mama Rose smiled weakly and touched her cheek. "My daughter, it's not your fault. Life has a way of changing people. Just take care of my grandchildren." That night, in her new one-room apartment behind a mechanic workshop, silence swallowed her whole. No sound of children laughing, no aroma of dinner, only the ticking of her old wall clock and the croaking of frogs outside. She lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, tears soaking her pillow. "God," she whispered, "is this how motherhood ends? You raise them, feed them, and they still forget the hands that fed them." Every dawn she woke up before the first cockcrow, prayed and read her Bible. Then she sat by the small window, watching the street, hoping one day a familiar car would stop, hoping David would remember she still existed. Sometimes her old neighbour, Mama Beatrice, stopped by with a cara or small gist from the market. But once Beatrice left, the silence would return, and in that silence Mama Rose would sigh deeply and say to herself, "I gave him everything, my youth, my strength, my sleep, my tears, and all I got in return was space." The days dragged slowly for Mama Rose in that lonely one-room apartment. The walls had cracks that looked like wrinkles, just like her face now. Every morning she'd sit by the window with a cup of lukewarm tea, staring at the street, waiting for a miracle. Maybe David's car, maybe his voice calling "Mama" the way he used to. But that miracle never came. Sometimes her neighbour, Mama Beatrice, would stop by to gossip or drop a bowl of ogie. One day she sighed and said, "Mama Rose, this your David no try at all. How you go carry bell, suffer labour, raise Pekin with all your blood, and he go just dump you like expired bread?" Mama Rose gave a faint smile. "My sister, a mother no fit curse her child. Maybe he's just under pressure. You know Lagos life, he fit turn even gentle soul to stranger." But as the days passed, silence became her only companion. Her hands shook when she tried to cook, her legs wobbled when she stood up, and her chest began to tighten from time to time. Then one cold evening, the sickness came like an uninvited guest. Fever gripped her. Sweat poured down her face. She struggled to breathe. Still, she reached for her old phone and dialed David's number with trembling fingers. "David, my son," she said weakly. "I'm not feeling well." From the other end, his voice was stiff and distant, the kind of tone people use for strangers on customer care. "Mama, I'm in a meeting right now. Don't worry, I'll send a doctor." She managed a faint "okay" before the line went dead. A young doctor came later that evening, pressed her wrist, gave her an injection, scribbled something on a paper, and left in a hurry. Not even a get well soon. But David didn't come. Days rolled into weeks, weeks became months. The calls became fewer, sometimes just once in 2 weeks. "How are you, Mama?" he'd ask casually, and Mama Rose, even half dead from fever, would reply softly, "I'm fine, my son. Don't worry about me." Because mothers, they lie to protect the same children who hurt them. One night, the pain came back with full force. Her chest burned as if someone had lit a fire inside her. She gasped for air, clutching the pillow. The room was dark, quiet, and merciless. In that moment, she whispered, "God, if my time has come, please forgive my sins, but teach my son humility before it's too late." By morning, Mama Beatrice found her lying helpless on the bed, her lips dry and eyes half closed. "Jesus! Mama Rose!" she screamed, rushing out to call David. When David got the call, he sounded irritated. "Ah, what again? I just spoke to her last week." Still, he drove down reluctantly, half expecting it to be another old woman drama. But when he entered that small, stuffy room and saw his mother's pale face, his chest tightened. For the first time in a long while, guilt punched him hard. The doctor checked her and said gravely, "She needs to be taken to the hospital immediately. Her condition is serious." In the hospital, tubes and wires surrounded her frail body. Machines beeped steadily, marking every breath she struggled to take. David stood there, his designer dress suddenly feeling useless. His eyes followed the slow rise and fall of her chest. His mind drifted back to the days Mama Rose used to carry him on her back to school under the rain, the nights she went hungry so he could eat, the morning she sold her wedding ring to pay his school fees. And now here she was, weak, silent, and fading. He fell to his knees beside her bed, his voice breaking. "Mama, I'm sorry. I've been wicked. I forgot where I came from. Please forgive me, Mama. Please." Mama Rose opened her eyes slowly. Her hand, trembling like a leaf in Harmattan breeze, reached for his head. She placed it gently there and smiled faintly. "My son, a mother never keeps malice with her child. You're already forgiven." Her lips quivered, her eyes dimmed with peace. David held her hand tightly, tears pouring down his face like rain. If only he could turn back time. If only success hadn't made him blind. If only... The doctor stepped aside and whispered to the nurse, "We've done all we can. Just pray." And as the machines kept beeping, David bowed his head against his mother's frail hand and sobbed like the little boy he once was. The same boy who forgot that every mother's heart is made of endless forgiveness, even when broken. Then around 2 a.m., when the doctor walked out of the small hospital room, his face as long as a Monday morning, he looked at David quietly and said, almost like he was whispering bad news to the wind, "Sir, your mother is gone." For a few seconds, David just stood there blinking. He thought maybe the doctor meant Mama Rose had gone to the bathroom or something. But when the truth finally landed, it hit like a trailer without brakes. His knees weakened. His world, his loud, stubborn, praying, ever-talking Mama Rose, had gone silent forever. He rushed into the room, and there she was, lying peacefully on the hospital bed. Her face looked calm, almost like she'd finally won a long fight. There was a faint smile on her lips, like someone who'd finally gotten tired of the drama in this world and decided to go report everyone to God himself. David fell to his knees beside her, shaking and whispering, "Mama, I'm sorry. I should have been here more often. I should have done better." But it was too late. The woman who used to shout, "David, you don't call me again. Abby, I don't have phone number," had made her final call. The funeral took place in Mama Rose's hometown, a small village where every chicken knew everyone's business. People came in groups, old women tying their wrappers tight, young men with bowed heads, children running around not really understanding what was going on. As her body was lowered into the ground, cries filled the air. Everyone had something to say. Mama Rose was a good woman. She helped everyone. She never went to bed without praying for her son. But you know Nigerians, mouths don't rest. Some people whispered just loud enough for David to hear. Fine man like that, but see how his mother died alone. So sad. Even with all his money, did the woman ever enjoy her old age? Those words stabbed David straight in the heart. Every handful of sand they threw over Mama Rose's grave felt like a slap across his chest. He wanted to shout at them to shut up, but deep down he knew they were right. He stayed there long after everyone had left, his cloth stained with sand, whispering, "Mama, forgive me. I didn't fulfill your happiness." A few days later, David went to Mama Rose's small rented house at the edge of town. It still smelled like her, powder, palm oil, and old perfume. The place was quiet, too quiet. Her wrapper was still hanging on the wall. Her radio was still tuned to that same gospel station she always listened to, the one that played only songs from the 90s. And right there on her small wooden table, her Bible lay open, marked at a page talked about honouring one's parents. David sat down on her bed. When he opened the drawer beside it, his heart almost stopped. Inside were tiny folded papers, receipts of every single money transfer he had sent her. She had kept them all, arranged neatly like precious awards. On one of the papers she had scribbled in her shaky handwriting, "God, please keep my son successful. Don't let him lack." David broke down completely. He held those receipts like treasure, crying the way a child cries when he realizes his mother's voice will never call his name again. From that day, David changed. Something inside him shifted. He couldn't undo the past, but he wanted to honor her in a way that would make her proud, even in heaven. He went back to her village, bought a small piece of land near the old market square, and built a learning center for children who couldn't afford school fees. He called it Mama Rose Learning Home. Beside it, he opened a small clinic where people could get free medical care. When the building was finally completed, the entire village gathered. The pastor prayed, women danced, and even the town gossip wiped her eyes, muttering, Mama Rose will be smiling wherever she is now." The pastor lifted his hands and said, "This good work will speak for Mama Rose even in her grave. Her son has turned his pain to blessing." David couldn't hold back his tears. Maybe, just maybe, his mother would finally rest peacefully, knowing he had learned what really mattered. That night, at home, he gathered his two children, Junior and Mira, in the living room. Vanessa, his wife, sat beside him, watching quietly. The house was peaceful, the air heavy with emotions. He looked at them and said softly, "My children, promise me one thing. Never take your parents for granted. Your grandma prayed for me more than I ever prayed for her, and I didn't realize her worth until she was gone." Junior, his little boy, sniffed and said, "Daddy, we will never forget Grandma. I'll even tell my friends about her." David smiled weakly and pulled them close. Tears slid down his face again. He finally understood. Money, fame, success, none of it meant anything if your parents' blessings weren't on your head. Mama Rose's life became a lesson for everyone who knew her. Value your parents while they're still breathing, because when they're gone, all you'll have left are memories, regrets, and those quiet nights when you wish you could just hear their voice one more time. Hello, beloved viewers. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll past. Take a moment today to call your mother, visit your father, or simply say thank you to them. No one prays for you like your parents do. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you believe every parent deserves to be honoured while they're still alive. Drop a comment below. Besties, tell me, what's one thing your parents always say that still echoes in your heart? Till next time, stay grateful, stay loving, and remember, your parents are blessings to you.